and welcome to The Fall to Grace. This is a podcast where we hope to bring a grounded, practical approach to mystic wisdom and spirituality. Today, my friend Connor Hatton and I are going to talk about action. So, what do you want to tell us about action, Connor? Give us an introduction.
Well, let's get started. Hi,
Okay.
Cyan.
Hi.
Welcome to the filmed version of The Fall to Grace. This is very exciting.
Yeah, this is our first time filming, so please go easy on us if it's not perfect. We still have some stuff to flesh out, I think.
But we're taking some action, which is in part what we want to talk about today. When I was thinking about this and when I was thinking about what we should discuss today, action kept coming up over and over and over for me. Action is an important part of our lives. And a lot of these spiritual spaces and a lot of the kind of spaces that you and I are in, we can be very kind of paralyzed individuals when it comes to our lives. We like to pray about things. We like to think about things. We like to talk about things, but not enough are we probably taking action in our lives, especially around the things that we want, or especially around the things that we're suffering about. So action is a powerful tool to kind of get us out of our head. I mean, the biggest impact that action has on our spiritual life is that it cuts out all the noise and it lets us stop kind of deliberating in our head. Should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? What if it goes wrong? What if it goes right? We do so much of this back and forth, and the back and forth can be really painful. So taking action is really the way that we get out of that. And it's really the way that we get anything done. Nothing gets done without some level of action. So action's a big part of all spiritual traditions, but it's important not just for the actions that we take. It's not just about doing good things. It's not just about not doing bad things. It's about how action and our acts in the world interact with our mental and our spiritual lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we want to talk about that. We want to talk about the Bhagavad Gita and what it means to take right action. Also, when we were brainstorming, I realized that I want to talk about something because I know a lot of people feel like they hear the phrase trust your gut a lot, and it's a phrase that I deeply believe in and abide by in my life. But the question then becomes, how do you trust your gut, and how do you build the awareness of what gut sensations feel like, and when do you know that it's time to act on them versus acting out of fear or anxiety or social programming, and how can we build the muscle? So where do you want to start?
Well, let's get into that. I mean, that's a big part of this. The reason I've been thinking about action so frequently is because I suffer from a lot of inaction personally. Going to school is something that I've thought about for years and years and years, and it's just something that I've never done, right? And there's a lot of use cases in my life where this kind of happens, where I want to do something, but I'm really not sure what I should be doing or how I should be doing it or how I'm going to get it accomplished. And I just paralyze. I mean, I freeze kind of whenever there's too many steps in a process rather than just taking that first step. So what you're talking about is just listening to that voice inside of you, listening to that muscle and intuition that tells you that this is the right thing to do. And that definitely comes before taking action. So I think we should definitely start there. What have you been thinking about as it relates
Okay.
to that?
Yeah, let's start there. I would love more people to be able to listen to this and develop the muscle, because it's a muscle that I've spent time intentionally developing, and I feel it getting stronger and stronger. Not that it's perfect, but I do feel it getting stronger and stronger. And actually, I asked the question the other day when I was pulling tarot cards, how do we connect, or I'm sorry, how do I connect to what some people would call spirit guides? You can think of them differently than that. But I asked that question, and I was kind of shuffling through the cards, and two popped out. And the way they popped out was so interesting. It was the High Priestess reversed, and on top of that, the Hierophant. Representing, so the High Priestess is your intuition, your inner knowing. And then the Hierophant is religious structures that are already in existence. And I was like, oh, so it was literally like covering the high priestess. That's how you listen to what some people would call guides. Some people would just call consciousness. Some people would call like whatever, God, like just that divine knowing that's already within you. Is you kind of set aside a lot of pre-existing notions that we've been given through like social programming and religious programming, and we listen to the inner knowing inside of us. So I think there are many ways to develop that gift. I think that it comes down to like listening to it in small choices that we make. That's how I've really started, like years ago, started developing it. Is I'll give you a really small example. Like when you go into your sock drawer and you have two options, a polka dotted sock or like, a more sensible sock, and your heart really wants to wear the polka dot socks that day, but you feel pressure from society to wear like the more sensible socks. That's a perfect time that you should be listening to your gut. Like, because the more you listen to it, the more it speaks. And the more that you don't listen to it, the more it says, I guess I'll just shut up then, because she doesn't want to hear it. So in small ways, that's really how we begin building the muscle, is like looking at a food menu and going, what do I really want? If everyone at the table is ordering one thing, what do I want? And like literally like even getting clear, especially if you're a people pleaser, like clearing the noise for a second, taking a deep breath, and then tuning in. And it starts being easier and easier to drop into your body, which is where I feel physical sensation. Start noting to yourself where you're experiencing that sensation. Like I know Connor and I have talked about this. I feel it in my solar plexus, like incredibly strongly. I feel things all the time, all day long. I feel things. So that would be considered probably clairsentience. And I know that like concepts just come to Connor more like claircognizance. Clairvoyance is like, seeing things. That's probably the most famous of the clairs, which are psychic abilities. The thing is, though, like everybody has latent psychic abilities, every single one of us. Some of us are more sensitive and have like built up the muscle. Some of us have been lucky enough to have families who have supported us in that too, which I definitely have had a family who's supportive of that. So that's really lucky. But it doesn't matter. If it's completely latent, it can still be drawn out of you through practice. And I think more people should do that.
Yeah. No, I think you said a couple important things there. And a really important one is this idea of, don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. And that many of us have trained ourselves out of that inner knowing. And I think that that's just, it's very natural for me. And I think it's very natural in our world, but we really prioritize like efficient and calculated decision making, like knowing that you're, managing whatever outcomes you possibly can and moving with very little risk. And I know that that was something that was ingrained in me as a kid, was just like, how many of these variables can I control? Try to control every single one that I can and make sure that you're making the right decision. And that doesn't always exist. And it's not necessarily the proper approach, right? As I've leaned into a more spiritual life and a more spiritual understanding of things, what I've learned is like, even being able to manicure and calculate every outcome is not leaving room for God necessarily. That there is a level of spontaneity and there is a level of whimsy that goes into every single decision. And it happens after you've made the decision, right? You can't control every single variable, and it's time that we stop trying. So when we're talking about trusting that inner knowing, it is just about channeling that part of me that does know. And that's a practice, right? And so many of us have not sat with that practice enough, which is just to do whatever it is that resonates with you. I mean, you talked about yours and you talked about mine a little bit, but everybody's a little bit different in terms of how they channel their intuition and what sings to them, right? Some people may feel it in their chest. Some people may feel it in their toes. So whatever that is for you is going to be the most important thing. It's kind of why it's hard to almost give advice about these things because they are so individualized. So if if you try to tell somebody to practice, automatic writing or something to get in touch with their guides, that's not necessarily going to work for everybody. It has to be unique to you. And that's the practice. Once you find how these things speak to you, you can start to get in touch with those things. And you just talk every single day. I mean, you work with this every single day until it's honed. And then you can start to really trust your decisions.
Yeah, and like I think that we actually can access most, if not all, of the clairs. But there will be one that really sticks out the strongest. But like in hindsight, thinking back on my life, I've definitely experienced all of the clairs like at different moments. Even the one where you like smell things that aren't there. I've experienced that a few times pretty strongly, which is really interesting. I had this like for a little bit, I kept smelling like meat, like rotting meat that wasn't there, like in like situations where it absolutely would not make sense. And I told a friend that, and she said, that probably means that there's something you're not letting go of. There's probably something rotting in your psyche. So that was interesting. I don't know, but take it or leave it. But in any case, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
really neat. And something I thought you said was really interesting when we were in the car earlier is like how, we think as Westerners specifically and 21st century Westerners, we think we're being so rational and we want to be so rational. But this brings me to a point you made a few episodes ago, where like you were talking about how monks, for example, are scientists and they're running like the scientific method on this stuff on like true happiness. And I think this is another good example of that. Like we think we're being so rational, but the weird thing is about that concept is this stuff has been around forever in like every single culture. There's always some version of like witchiness and medicine men and like intuitives and all that stuff. And then even in the most like left-brained fields in modern day Western society, like, even guys on Wall Street are using their intuition to make deals. Like very successful people do tune into their gut. This is like actually a thing that like it's not even that woo-woo. It's like a lot of people do it. A lot of very successful normal people do it. So why is there like a divide? Like if you do it too much, then all of a sudden you're kooky.
I mean, I totally agree. I think all these things follow the scientific method. If I'm trying out a new way to talk to my guides or a new way to channel my intuition, I'm using it and whatever way method that is. Like right now I'm doing muscle testing experiments for one, right?
Hmm.
And the muscle testing is not dead on, but I'm honing it. And it might not be an effective method for me, but I'm trying it out, right? The whole idea of the scientific method is that you have to be willing to test your hypothesis. And so many of us shut it down pretty immediately. I think, to your point, I just think it's so funny that there are like monks in the Himalayas and there's sadhus in the Himalayas that are without shirts and without pants doing crazy poses and doing miracles all the time.
Yeah.
And we just kind of like don't talk about it at all, even though they
Yeah.
would like welcome us to come up and film whatever they're doing. They're not shy about it.
And we're like, if
And
only
many
we could
people,
find the key to happiness. And it's like, I think
yeah,
we got it already.
or like or we dispute like the validity of miracles and intuition
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's contrary to, I mean, it's just contrary to our normal scientific thought. And the normal scientific thought is often outside of us, right? Like we know the physics of something, or we know the chemistry of something, or the biology of something, and we can operate based on knowledge. And that's so much of the trap that we fall into, is that it's like, oh, if there was just if I had a little more information about this certain situation, then I would know what to do. And that we fall in that hole all the time in our lives, in our relationships, in our careers. Like if I just knew what I wanted to do, then I would be totally happy and I would be able to leave my dead end job today. And I could just totally go be happy, but I don't know what I want to do, or I don't know if there's another good job out there for me. So I'm going to stay in the misery I do know rather than risk this thing I don't know. And there's some sound reason to that, but there's also a lot of suffering involved in that. And we prioritize that security that we feel in the not knowing. I mean, we take refuge in the back and forth and in the deliberation. We're comfortable thinking about things, but we are rarely comfortable acting without perfect knowledge. So what we're talking about is like not necessarily getting perfect knowledge, but understanding that you yourself really already have this knowledge and that
Yes.
nobody knows you better than you do, right? Nobody's going to know what you should be studying or what work you should be doing. Your parents are going to try, your friends are going to try, the society's going to try to tell you what to do, but only you know. And that's what's so beautiful about the human experience, is that it is extremely individualized in a certain sense, and that it's unique to us. All of these gifts are unique to us. All of our experiences are unique to us. And we just don't honor that uniqueness enough because we have this prevailing kind of cultural setting that tells us that we need to be doing certain things or acting certain ways. And that's, I mean, that just takes us out of the, I mean, robs us of 100% of our human experience. If I'm living somebody else's life, I'm totally screwed. I forget who said this. Was it Dostoevsky who said it is better to go wrong in your own way than right in another's?
I don't know, but I like that.
Yeah. I think it was Dostoevsky, but yeah, it's better to go wrong in your own way than to go right in someone else's. And we spend a lot of time being fixated on being right in somebody else's and getting that validation from those people who are saying, "Oh, you're making good money. You're making your way up that ladder, and this ladder you've never wanted to climb from the start."
Yeah. So I think it's about like bringing it back to what we were talking about. I think it's important to like hone that skill of having the inner knowing in small ways, and then you can begin, cuz life is not actually a ladder. They'll tell you that it's a ladder, but it's not a ladder. It's a winding road. Yeah, I'm getting corny. It's fine.
It's
Like
a
bear with
rolling
me.
stone. Yeah.
Yeah, some philosophers might say. Um Where was I going with this? Yeah, so you're not actually climbing a ladder. You're just in the middle of the woods. I don't even think there's a path, actually. I take that part back. I don't even think there's a path. But I'm reminded of something Liz Gilbert said. I think she said it in an interview. No, she might have said it in Big Magic, actually. And I know she's a little bit controversial. So take it or leave it, but I think this is phenomenal. Where it's like a breadcrumb. The importance of honing your clairs or your latent ability of knowing and connecting with source energy or whatever you want to call it. You can use less woo-woo phrasing. You can use whatever phrasing you want. But the importance of that is simply to get you from breadcrumb to breadcrumb. So you have to follow your gut to a breadcrumb, and then you can pause. It's like you choosing what you want to study in grad school. Sorry if I hope that's okay that I shared that. But, and then, you don't know what you're going to do with it. But if you follow your gut there, the next breadcrumb will be revealed. The path won't be revealed, but the next breadcrumb will. And then when you get to that breadcrumb, you'll know that you'll know where the next breadcrumb is after that, and on and on and on. That's all like we're trying to do here, because it's not a ladder. Like we're just like wandering through the forest. But if you're following the breadcrumbs, you're going to get to somewhere pretty fucking interesting at the very least. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's really hard to believe, right? Like, it's really hard to come into that understanding that, like, if I just take an action today, that the next thing is coming. I mean, it's a pure faith that a lot of us aspire to, but a lot of us don't have. And so when I'm thinking about, taking action, right? Like, so much of my thought process around taking action is like playing a chess game. It's trying to think 5 or 6 moves ahead, and it's trying to anticipate what the other people in the story are going to say, think, and feel. And I'm responding to how I think they think and what they think I think, and all of these different moving parts. And all of a sudden I'm living in a total bullshit reality in my head, because I know exactly how you feel about that situation without ever having talked to you about it. I know exactly how they're going to feel about it without ever having talked to them. I know what they're going to think if I do decide to, go back to school and take on debt. They're going to think I'm a fool, and I'm just projecting outwards everything that I'm afraid of. And when I project all of that fear onto this imaginary situation, there's no way I'm going to act. And there's no way I'm going to believe that the next thing is just down the road from the next action. Right. And so much of this is just finding the courage to do it. Like I've been thinking so much about courage lately, and it's just something that, like, I've run back and forth on this in my head, because it's like, oh, well, courage is something, but faith is another thing. Like, it's like, no, faith is having the courage and still doing it and trusting that it'll be okay. I mean, it's not that it's ever going to not be scary. I'm pretty resigned at this point to believing that each and every day is going to be a little scary. And that, especially
Yeah.
big movements that I want to make in my life are going to be terrifying. And I've tried to pray this fear away left and right, but it seems to me that, you don't get to be entirely absent of fear, that you have to do certain things. And if you do certain things, you start to learn that you are taken care of. Like, I think that is one of the craziest things about starting to take some of these actions, is that they do start to cascade and they do start to lead to the next breadcrumb. And every little bit along the way, like, feels good when it's good, right? And feels bad when it's not. This is the other part of action. We were talking about this today about, Ganesh is the remover of obstacles in the Hindu pantheon. And one thing that we were talking about was just talking to Ganesh and saying, if this is meant for me, make it extremely easy. If this is not meant for me, make it extremely hard. Like, obstacles and problems can serve as our guides. This chatter is not our guides. This chatter is noise that our ego is making, trying to protect itself and trying to catch its own tail. When we actually start to take actions and things start materializing in our lives, and something's really hard, and I just can't seem to find this job in high finance that I've wanted. And I can't seem to get an interview. I can't seem to get through the interview, whatever it is, then I can understand that might not be for me. And I can start to kind of have this dialogue with things that are truly happening, not just this dialogue in my head. So action's powerful. It's the most powerful thing we can do.
I agree. That's such a good point too. And I do think that's where, like, manifestation goes wrong too, because it's like there is something to be said that we shape our own realities, but it has to be, in my opinion, within dharma. So it's like we're working in tandem with a higher power. You said Ganesha, like, that's great. Like, we're working with a higher power in tandem, like, to create something here, so I think if you're doing something that's not within dharma, like, it's just gonna, like, you're gonna be forcing it, you know what I mean? It's like trying to drive a cart and it has square wheels. Like, it'd be a hell of a lot easier to just, like, put new wheels on the cart, you know what I mean? Like, if it's not
Are
coming
you, are you,
together,
are you talking big D Dharma or little D Dharma?
define the difference to me.
Because, like, big D Dharma is the way of the world. It can be the way of the Tao. It can be the way of the world. But it's also the just way. It's like acting with scrutiny and discernment and doing things that won't harm others, which I think is totally great. It's a little more flexible than kind of the Christian understanding of sin, because there's dharma and adharma, which is just acting out of it. It's just discordant with morals and good things. But little d dharma is our own personal dharma.
That
It's
sounds
our
right.
own life. Like, it's who you are and who you are going to become and who you are meant to be, right? And so I think that's a little bit more that we're talking about, is just like, how do I make decisions that are in line with who I am and who I want to be, right?
Right. Exactly. That is what I'm talking about. Although there's so much overlap. Like, I'd hope your little D Dharma isn't being like Jack the Ripper. That'd be good if it wasn't. I don't know. I can't look out in the grand scheme of things, but I think that would be good if we're all, like, behaving in a way that's, like, in line with the most compassionate approach whenever possible, at least. But no, like, if everyone is following their heart and following their clairs, following the guidance they're receiving, maybe you're not receiving guidance yet, but if you start practicing, you will, I promise. If everyone is, like, working with that constantly in their forefront, the forefront of their minds, I mean, I believe that the world and the universe will kind of move like the inside of a clock, right? It'll just move seamlessly and it'll flow. And, there's always going to be someone who wants to be a midwife. There's always going to be someone who wants to have babies. Like, it's just going to work out, I think, more beautifully and more seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I just don't know if it always feels like it's
It
working out.
doesn't. It
Like,
doesn't. Yeah.
yeah, and again, yeah, you're right. Like we all do have our roles that we play, and some of us are destined for certain roles, and some of us aren't. Like parents, right? Like some people were just meant to be a parent, and that's all they've ever wanted was having a kid, and they have it, and they're serving their dharma in that certain sense. But raising a kid is not always like a clock just ticking forward and extremely nice and smooth all the time, but it is in line with your purpose. And, everything that happens that seems discordant, that seems bad, can be good, right? The obstacles that are in our way can be also ways for us to learn and ways for us to grow in our dharma. We just got to stop being obsessed with everything feeling good all the time. Decisions feel bad. Taking action feels bad most of the time. I mean, your knees are shaking when you call to like break up with your girlfriend. You're sick to your stomach, but it can still be the right thing to do, right? So many of us get to
Absolutely.
that knee shaking and that stomach churning, and we go,
It must not be right.
maybe it'll change. Yeah, we can give them
Or they
another couple
confuse
weeks.
that
Yeah,
for a sign. They're like, "Oh, well, I feel
yeah.
this in my gut," which is like fear, terror, horror, shame, guilt, etc. But it's like, that's not really a gut feeling. That's not how I'm defining a gut feeling. A gut feeling is just like points you in the direction. But no, it can be horribly painful and truly like, I mean, now we're getting into a philosophical discussion that I don't have the answer to. Nish would be like, "Well, what is adharmic?" I mean, in Advaita Vedanta, like, can anything be truly, like, wrong? I mean, why is Shiva granting boons to demons? We always come back to that too. Like, demons are kind of like in the symbiosis of the world, on the world stage, on the universe's stage, like, they're part of the symbiosis. So, um, that gets confusing, but we don't have to even go there. You just have to follow your gut, and it's gonna be fine.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point. I mean, there's less bad out there than we think there is, and there's less immoral than we think there is. Um, but that being said, like when we are taking this on an individual level, like there are some ways that we can figure out if we're following dharma or if we're following our ego, right? Like these are the big distinctions, is that your intuition and your ego are pretty incompatible at times. Sometimes they're aligned, but a lot of times they aren't, and your ego is much louder than your intuition. So if you do, if you're making decisions based on individual events, that's a big sign that you're not acting out of your intuition, that you're acting out of your head. It's like, I really just don't want to have that conversation with that person. And despite this relationship being horrible, it could be a working relationship, it could be a romantic relationship, like a friendship, whatever it is. It's like, this is causing me misery, but I'm very terrified to tell this person how I feel. And so if you're just running scared from that conversation, then you're just working with your ego and you're letting it control the show. The intuition is below that. That says like, this relationship isn't serving me. This relationship is causing me pain, right? And you just have to find the courage to get through that moment. But so many of us can't get through that moment, and we sit with it for longer and longer, and it gets bigger and bigger. The more we think about it, the bigger the boogeyman gets. So this is also discernment, right? Like we can definitely listen to our guides and we can definitely listen to our gut, but it's also like, which of these thoughts is coming from my ego and which of these is not, right? Which of these is true and which one of these is just making noise to keep me from doing something or keep me doing something, right? So much of addiction is like, I know this is wrong. I know this is wrong. This is horrible. This is killing me, but I really need to feel good. I need to feel good. I need to feel good. And so you're constantly at war with your mind and your intuition, because your intuition is telling you you're done for. I mean, my body was telling me I was done for. I was in yeah. And my mind was like, no, you need this, you need this, you need this. Right. And so just being able to sit with competing voices and choose the one that we should be listening to, which is that intuition and that inner knowing.
Well, you need to start asking yourself, which is talking to me out of fear and which is talking to me out of a sense of trust, surrender, love.
Mm-hmm.
Trust, surrender, and love, calm, compassion. Those are the ways that I interpret like what consciousness feels like or God feels like, the thing beyond the thing. To me, when I get somewhere in meditation or I feel something in a clairsentient way, it kind of follows those, you know? It feels like calm compassion. It feels like trust. It feels like surrender. It feels something like love. It feels like peace, knowing you're going to come home from school and there's going to be like a glass of milk and cookies on the table waiting for you. If you can conjure that feeling, even if you didn't experience that, like that's just, it's that kind of a feeling under it all. Um, if you're not feeling that yet, ask yourself like, what's gnawing at you? Like in that example with addiction, like the thought of sobriety gnawed at you. Even like the voices that were covering that, like there was that underneath, you know?
Definitely. Definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
and in most of these situations, we have a voice that's gnawing at us. And
Yes.
it's a duller, achier pain, right? You start hating going to the job. You just go, I can't believe I'm doing this again. And then you go, well, I need the money and I need the paycheck. And you got this little voice in your head that keeps telling you it's the right thing to do because you need to live. And so you follow that fear, right? Like these fears are real, but they're loud. And the suffering is what I mean, when this my therapist always says that change happens when suffering outweighs the fear. So it's when you are hurting so much that not taking action is just as painful as taking the action. And the goal is to not to get to that place, which is a little bit of what we're talking about. Just like once you've honed your intuition and you start to trust it and you move a little bit lighter, you don't stick with things that aren't for you as long and you attract things that are for you more. But for most of us, it's just like, I'm just going to be in this until I can't stand it, right? I'm going to be in this job until I erupt on somebody and storm out of a meeting, which I've also done that and quit a job. So, like we just need to start to listen to those things more. And that's exactly what you were talking about at the beginning of this is like being comfortable, getting quiet and asking questions. None of us are comfortable getting quiet and asking questions. Most of us avoid that as much as possible. Like sleeping with the TV on in the background because we just can't stand the
Yeah.
idea of silence. And so it's gentle, right? Like this path and this trying to get to know things and trying to take actions and all these things, like it still needs to be incredibly gentle as we do it. And you do it cautiously and you do it with full attention. And you say, I'm going to see what happens after this. It's like playing Jenga. I always think about it this way. It's like you're poking the Jenga boards to see which ones move, right? Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
one's
yeah.
not moving at all. I can't grab that one. And then you finally hit one and you're like, I think this one will come out. And I do so much of that in my life. Like I'll do little actions and just see if I get pushback. And if I get pushback, I take it as a sign that like, that's probably not right. So a lot of what you're talking about with my clairs, some of this is trial and error and experimentation with a lot of it. And, you pivoting, right? Not taking things too seriously, being able to swivel left when I thought I was going right, with as little kind of fight in my heart as possible. No, I really wanted this job and I really worked hard for this job and I'm going to do this job because I worked so hard for it, despite the fact that I come home miserable every day and go to bed thinking about this job and wake up thinking about this job and am scared all day long. And that's the existence that so many of us live in. And we say, I studied this in school, like I'm achieving with this, I just got a promotion. We're getting the wrong signs, right? And meanwhile, your heart is gnawing at you and just trying to tell you day in and day out that this isn't for you. But then you get a nice bonus and you're like, well, maybe I can do this for the next 30 years and then I'll retire and it'll be good. And so
Yeah.
we just listen to the narrative. I mean, we listen to what's going on in our head and we end up suffering as a result. And that's just, I mean, that's so much of this whole path. But taking action is so key for all of this. Like when I'm thinking about just the paralysis that we get in, like the best way to get out of it is to take an action. Your mind is a problem solving tool and it loves problem solving. And that's what it's for. Like a good mind is a good problem solver. But we sit with these problems for a very long time and we let our mind just attack it from every single angle that it possibly knows how. And it has this problem. And as long as it has this problem, it's going to work. Your mind's not like your enemy. It's just a thing that's going. And if it has a problem with it, it's going to work at it. So taking action early on takes away the ability for your mind to work around a problem. It says, we got clear communication about this. Like it's not working out. We don't have to think about how we're going to make this work out anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or
Totally.
yeah. And so you cut down on the mental suffering. Like the mental anguish is the hardest part of being human. In my mind. I mean, I don't know. I'd much rather sit with heartbreak than I would with anxiety, personally. And I don't know if that's true for everybody, but like I've just found that I suffer so much more in my head than I do in my heart. My heart always changes into like some bigger, kind of more expansive self. Like every time I experience heartbreak, my heart just grows, even though it's extremely painful in the moment. Every time my
Yeah.
head's going, there's no good outcome. I just suffer and suffer and suffer and suffer until I can't stand it no more.
Yeah. On the topic of mental anguish though, like I think, and you're so right about all of that, but I think that, people do need to start like getting comfortable listening to that inner voice, having a dialogue with that inner voice. You need to start noting. You don't have to start doing yet, but you need to start noting, and you can't second guess what you note. You basically said that a minute ago, but like when you note like a gut feeling, you can't like keep asking the same question over and over. That's another thing. Your
Mm-hmm.
psychic abilities or whatever you want to call them are going to stop speaking to you. If you like start practicing this and you keep asking the same question over and over again, should I leave him? Should I leave the job? Should I do this? Should I move to Barbados? Whatever. Um, if you keep asking that question over and over again, looking for a different answer, that's not what we're doing here. Like, you get
Well,
one answer.
the mind will give you another answer. The mind's
It
always
will.
like excited to
Yeah.
provide options,
Yeah.
but for the most part, you already know before you're asking the question.
Sure.
If you do sit with it, very rarely are we genuinely confused. This is like, like most people, if they're flipping a coin, you flip the coin and then you know which way it wants
Right.
to land,
Yeah.
right?
You can't keep flipping the coin then too after that. You
Yeah,
can't keep being like, "Are
yeah,
you sure?" Like, that's
yeah.
stupid. You have to, like it's not stupid, it's disrespectful, I think, to whatever it is out there that you're asking. They're gonna be like, "You already asked, so I'm hanging up now. You're annoying me, human." I think.
I mean, I don't know if it's that, but it's certainly
I'm just kidding.
it's a two wolves problem, right? It's like,
Uh-huh.
which wolf gets stronger
Yeah.
is the one you feed. And we've been feeding our mind for a very long time. So to feed the soul wolf and to feed the intuition wolf is a totally new game. And it's going to take a while of feeding that for you to start to trust it, right? It's kind of got to get bigger than the mind. But how we feed it and how we do make it bigger is by taking some opportunities to trust it, however we can. Even if it's something small, like you're making a start, right? I hope there's people listening that are like, I have never once made a decision based on my intuition. I am constantly thinking about impressing my father or impressing my mother, right? So many of us live in those kinds of relationships where our validation is our outcome. And that's the one we want. And we're never doing anything we want to do. We're doing things that people want us to do. And that's a really hard existence. And so if you can even, start to train your intuition very quickly, like you were talking about with the menu, right? Like just take a small action, which is like, no, I just want this. I'm not gonna second guess how many calories or if this is gonna feed me, if I'm gonna
Yeah.
be hungry later. Like stop with all the extra chatter. Just go for the
Everyone
thing
orders
that
a Bud
sinks.
Light and you want a Guinness, you get the Guinness. That's your homework assignment or whatever it is, but you get the Guinness, so to speak,
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, I can't
Listener.
do that homework assignment.
They make in a Guinness.
Yeah. No. No, it's great, right? I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, it's not about defiance either, right?
No, it's
Like
not.
whatever you're saying, it's not like, oh, I'm just going to be different than everybody else. We also have this voice in our head that's just like, go be the exact opposite of
Right.
anything anybody wants you to be, right? Just defy it entirely. I mean, that's so much of like the child. Like a child either gets extremely defiant or they get extremely acquiescent to their parents' wants. And
Enneagram 4
and
and Enneagram 2. Clocking
sure.
in.
Yeah, so there you go. But, life is about moving into like what's authentic. And we've talked about this a million times. And authenticity is rarely purely defiant or rarely purely acquiescent. It's far more about who you are. So yeah, being able to make a decision on the menu, being able to reach out to somebody when you get that impulse, right? Like how many of us just like think of somebody and we're like, oh man, I haven't talked to that person in forever. Maybe I should give them a call, and we never do it. Like that's a gift. It's telling you maybe to reach out to that person. But none of us follow our signs. None of us follow our sense. And they're given to us. And then it kind of dies after a while if you don't nurture it. Do you want to talk about the Gita real quick?
It's at 45 minutes?
I'll close on this, which is just going back to this idea of courage that, the world is not waiting for you to not feel fear. The world is waiting for you to feel your fear and do it anyway. And that is sage advice that's given by tons of people, but rarely internalized. That every single moment, so many of us are petrified by fear. I mean, we are fully internalized in our fearful experience. And we're not going to necessarily get out of that. The only way out of that is to take a certain level of action, to deal with the thing that is causing you so much fear and anxiety. Many of us like to continue to sit with it, and many of us like to continue to suffer, whether we like it or not. So if there is something that's on your plate that you've been avoiding for a very long time, or a tough conversation that you need to have, or a conversation that just brings you clarity, these are all actions that you can take to cut down on the mental chatter and to cut down on that suffering that happens when you're laying awake at night. If we take those actions, we start to feel better. And it's just because our mind quiets down, but also we're stepping into the integrity that we want. When every time you take an action, you are taking a stand of integrity. And that is how we become the person that we want. We don't act like we're doing all the good things. And if I had this, I would do that. It's like, no, we do these things. And in that we grow. And in that we start to change. So action is such a key part. And I always forget it. And
Easy to
I'm just
forget.
keep coming back to it.
And yeah, something I would add, going back to what we were talking about earlier, like my biggest piece of advice is don't try to look 5 breadcrumbs into the future. Ask your gut, ask yourself, what is the next breadcrumb? And really note the answer. Like whatever the answer is, even if it's not what you're expecting, note it. You don't even have to take action on it. I would highly recommend you do take action on it. But if that even feels really scary, just get in the practice of noting. Just note it, and keep asking, different things, and then note that. And start noting like the difference in your body between something that vibrates at the frequency of fear and something that vibrates at the frequency of trust, surrender, and compassion. Those 3 are usually bundled together. So, yeah, look at the next breadcrumb, and your homework assignment, if you choose to accept, is make one small decision based off your gut. One teeny tiny decision. It could be anything, what kind of tea you want, but trust it and follow it and do it. That's my homework assignment for you.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you guys for watching. This is
Yes.
exciting.
Thanks for bearing with us for our
Yeah,
potentially shoddy quality so far.
We'll get so much better at this.
Yeah.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop us a line. We are the Fall to Grace on Instagram and TikTok. We'll hopefully have a little more content for those for you guys too out of this. But we love you tons and tons and tons. Learn it, love it, do it, and be well.
Yes, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.